talking about macroscopic gesticulation and communication between cultures and media, we come to the situations where technologies would seem to be the pushing of the archetypal forms of the unconscious out into social consciousness. May this not help explain why technology as environment is typically unconscious? Now dig this. The interplay between environmental and content factors between old and new technology seems to obtain in all fields whatever. All technologies are collective unconscious. All art, science, and philosophy are anti-environmental controls that are ever merging into the environmental and losing their power to create awareness of environment. When arts fail to cope with the environment by being anti-environment, when they fail to do that, Doug, then there can be a shift to a rapid succession of innovations as ersatz or fake anti-environments. Now what that means, Mike and Doug, that if there is a shift to a rapid succession of innovations, that means whole cultures offering themselves in transformation mode. The revolution in any form, and through all the cultures, from Poland to England to Thatcher to Reagan to Africa to Cuba to Vietnam to China, all these are cultural gesticulations and communications offering themselves as anti-environment. But because it's an ersatz anti-environment, in other words, you can't be an anti-environment under Bob conditions, we are united since I won the election, right? Then that's why revolutions like this in China will have such a short lifespan, because the ersatz and the environment phase is very short. Now,
well, do you know when I talk about Razzle Dazzle, do you know what I'm talking about?
yeah, it's a tiny little show that appealed to many people.
Yeah, and it had an incredible little feature in it from Australia called the Magic Boomerang.
Ah, yes, I remember.
When the kid threw the boomerang, time stood still.
Ah, that's interesting. Now, you know what? The boomerang is an ancient tribal artifact emphasizing the tetrad effect. You know, you take any artifact, you enhance it, it then obsolesces a previous artifact, it retrieves an artifact that was forgotten a long time ago, and when pushed to extreme, flips into its other. The boomerang was a simple dialectic flip syndrome. Do we have a technology that is appropriate for the tetrad, a four-level situation that retrieves the boomerang and has four elements rather than just going out and back? Maybe the Frisbee. Is a Frisbee a tetrad more than a boomerang? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's sort of a, monophonic boomerang.
Yeah, like, I guess nice phrase. The boomerang is a triangle. You know, that triangle was visual space. The Frisbee is a sphere, a vibrating sphere like a UFO, and that is a visual expression of the UFO dynamism, which will be the content of electric conditions, the resonating sphere. So you could say the old form of authority was the pyramid, that's the boomerang. Now the reason the tribal peoples had a better awareness of, like our native cultures, and the Tibetans had a better awareness of the flip process, what they called chiasmus, was that their triangle had a gap in it. They took off the bottom point, right? And the boomerang illustrated that flip, whereas the West got trapped in visual Hegelian space and was triangulized into a dialectic and a triad. Now, the UFO is a resonating sphere, which is not the whole story, but it is an update on the conditions we live in. You get what I'm saying here?
Well, yes, perhaps the UFO in its own, in its own reality looks like a boomerang, but from our eyes it looks like the disc.
Yeah, let me see. I think what you're saying, it looks like a disc, but it acts like a boomerang. Yeah.
No, for instance, the Earth is not a sphere. The Earth is a shaped like a coil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, wouldn't hyperspace be a boomerang sense that it goes in one way and then it goes back another way? UFOs are seen to jump back and forth. That is like a boomerang effect that we're seeing. I mean, well, we see the effect of it leaping back and forth, the reversal of the boomerang, but it is visually seen to us as a sphere, a resonating sphere. That's what I meant by saying the boomerang was the hidden ground of the effect of the sphere is a boomeranging thing, instant karma.
And plus, the term rang, it implies past tense, so it may go back and forward in time.
Yeah, that's right. Good point. Yeah,
it resonates in the past.
Excellent pattern recognition there. The answers are often in the language, and you just pointed that out. Yes, boomerang. Boom, big bang. And it's an effect of the ringing acoustic space of the Big Bang. So boomerang. It rang, and the UFOs are still bouncing from the effect. In other words, they haven't located in visual space solidified like the Earth beings were for a long while. since the time of Moses till the amazing telegraph invention. You know what I mean? That's when visual space subsided and the pyramid had died.
Okay, I have a caller on hold.
Very perceptive comments, caller.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
The show. We will go to one more caller. We will turn on Bob's mic, and let's go to it. Hi, caller.
You're on. Silence. Yeah, let them relax.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi, go ahead.
Sweet lips.
Yo, you're on the air.
Silence your medium.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi, you're on the air. Maybe he doesn't know you have to keep
You
it.
turn the radio up.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Well, this gives everybody a break from George's tirade.
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah.
We're here.
This is good, actually.
Yeah, I like the, this is electric autonomy. We are illustrating our theme. There are no connections. This person is trying to communicate under electric conditions and just can't connect. George tries to connect. The problem with George is that he tries to match.
Oh, you have to turn your radio back up.
Hello?
Yeah, can you turn your radio up a little bit?
No, I can't. I'm in the wrong room for that.
Oh, I see. Well, I think that's the only way that'll work.
Oh, I see. Well, I'm not quite up to date because I haven't been able to hear the last couple of minutes of the show. But I do have something of a question for Bob.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can just hear your voice.
Good.
You said a little while ago that the pyramid was the ancient form of the of authority.
Yes.
What is the current form of authority?
The resonating sphere.
That's what I would like to challenge.
Go ahead.
I would like to think that ever since the mid 1880s, when Nietzsche postulated the idea of the eternal recurrence,
Yeah.
that the ring is the modern form of authority.
Oh, no. The ring is the sphere on visual space terms, the flat image. Now, think of the ring. If you think of it having depth, then it's a resonating sphere. Did you hear that?
Hello?
And he's disconnected again, Mike. Yeah.
Hi, I'm still here.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So it's all right. Mike knows what he's doing. The you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
You see, if you look at a ring as an image, it is a sphere when it's twirled in motion. You know, if you put it in gyroscopic motion, the reason we think, if you're thinking the ring is not a sphere, then you're looking at the ring as flat, visual, abstract space. The ring is the sphere. So you're agreeing with me. It's just that you like the idea of the ring as a flat image.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. Could you tell me where the motion comes from?
It comes from light through affecting your retina. Light through creates the illusion of movement. It activates your kinetic and proprioceptive senses. And in other words, use your eye as an ear. In other words, you merge visual and acoustic space. Kinetic and proprioceptive and acoustic space are very close. So the visual image for what you just said was the ear superimposed over the eye. In this article, John Massey said the problem of the artist today is to deal with the fact that we have no bodies. Now, there's nobody in Toronto talking about perceptually how we have no bodies other than me. They've been listening to me, okay? They've been listening to the discarnate state. All right, now here's the point, is that these guys, they can't afford individual artist space, so they got to put together some zone. It's a warehouse zone. You know, what is it, Odessa Hendeley syndrome. Make a warehouse and stick objects in there, obsolete as
The
heck.
Odessa file.
Yeah. Oh, the white Russians. So the point is they're making art objects. And the problem about November 22nd, 1963, as a visual image, is that it doesn't resonate. The only way to invest in that eternal point of the consolidation of matter, miming what happened when Christ was crucified, the reconsolidation of the second Adam's establishment. Not the first Adam. He went around naming things. He was impotent. The second Adam could build his own world. Things like fusion were to come, all right? So to have the resonance of that under electric conditions, you would not use a image. You would not invest in an image. You would invest in a man who he represents, and a woman. Bob is both a man and a woman and an animal, and an insect, right? All things, all nature plus. You'd invest in the resonating remembrance of that every second Wednesday. an acoustic resonance of the eternal meaning of November 22nd, 1963. You know what I mean?
Yep. Okay.
And so don't buy Warhol stuff. Warhol is an object, and objects don't deal with bodiless man.
What happens to real estate when they pull down the wall?
It ain't real anymore.
Right.
It'll be a garden for subgeniuses, for mobility.
It'll be more than go soft. It'll become caca, humus,
Well, software will harden and hardware will soften.
real humus.
Yeah, it'll be humorous. It'll be a humor scene. I mean, the Chinese, to us, they look like they're screaming and crying, but they're laughing. They can pick up Bob via satellite, and they know since the election on March 3rd, 1988, that Bob is in power, hence sweeping changes. Kidney.
Democracy is a bloody parade. And so,
It's a bloody
the other
parade.
addendum is I worked with we were talking myth there for a minute.
Yeah, you
And,
worked with a myth?
I was working with a myth, a mythic icon, Robert De Niro.
Robert
De
Niro.
Niro.
In the ear.
And Robert De Niro. And,
You know.
and Dean in the Euro.
In
And-
one ear or out the other.
And I said, you ever heard of Marshall McLuhan? And he looked at me and he said, the medium is the message. Yeah, right. Yeah, good.
He was matching, Mr. Kidney. He was matching with you, right? So did you make him?
He was
matching.
charming, but you know, Bob, he's in another realm. He's
Is that all?
talking about solar government.
He is?
Well, you know, I mean, when you, Bob, hire, jet helicopters to go to and from lunch,
Yeah.
that's the level at which Robert De Niro works.
Well, he is looking. You know that he was fascinated with the Pepsi ad. You know that girl, the one who's a very good AM singer?
Right.
You know, the daughter? What's her name? The one who's in Alameda. Whitney, yeah.
Whitney.
He was fascinated by her, but she rejected him. But
Right.
see, it's just like Frank looking for Gorby. He's looking for an appropriate image to invest his time with.
Mhm.
That's the identity crisis of mythic. That's
Right.
the mythic clash of images. These guys, as you noticed, he would have nothing to do with you. He's
Look at-
looking for complementary mythic images to engage himself in.
Looking for a good meal.
A meal.
Mm.
Not a meal on wheels.
No, a special meal, special menu.
A meal on circuitry. A special menu. Well, so that's all he said? The medium is a message? He just parroted the line, the party line, and went on.
That was it.
Well, you know, Mr. Kidney, as you make these inroads, you know what your job is, and you've got to do a little more making. When they start matching with you, you say, no, global theater, not global village. Or say the medium is the mess age, not message, or mass age, right?
Yep.
You got to play with it.
Oh, we did. We played, Bob. We played a lot. But anyway.
Okay, could you end off tonight with your Jack Nicholson imitation of Marshall McLuhan doing Donald Duck, pretending that Bob is not alive? You know, Ernie Kovacs style.
No, but I thought if someone can do a good Elmer Fudd, if you sing Elmer Fudd doing all the greatest Beatles hits, it works. You know. Oh, we're going to carry that weight for a long time.
You mean like Russian radio? You're talking like the voice of Russia.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, shortwave. That's shortwave timber. The Chinese are going to be good at that. They're ducky, funny people, right? Don't duck, shout. We got to go, Mr. Kidney. Say hello to Mr. Napoleon of the past
Thank you for the
Indian
advice on buying and selling Warhol.
Yeah, Warhol. What does that word say to you? It's the whirlpool, the whirlpool,
But
the
you were
social whirl. That's it. He becomes his name, Andy Social Whirl. That's what it means.
Finder's fees,
He
Yo
was-
Picasso.
He's like Ezra Pound. He failed. Good night.
Night.
What was your theme then?
Oh, God, I can't remember.
That's good. You're keeping up with Bob, because Bob is not into forgetfulness.
Really?
No, that's amnesia.
Yeah.
See, didn't he make sense what I just said, right?
Doesn't matter.
Bob is not into forgetfulness.
Which you did.
Yeah, I know.
But I complimented you. So I contradicted myself.
Yeah.
But Bob is both, either or, and. Both plus, right?
Plus or minus.
Plus, and more.
And more. Plus more.
Yeah.
Do you have a question for Bob?
If a theme, a statement. Let's not have a question. Let's have a statement. Let's have a creativity here.
A manifesto.
One
Well-
unit of creativity.
I was just listening to your chart
Thank you.
you're rhyming off there.
Yeah.
I was trying to follow it. But the only thing that really stuck out to me was myth.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about a statement that I read in Robert Persig's book
Yeah.
about mythos over logos.
Yeah. You got it. It's the right track. Continue.
And then I was trying to think, what is that mythos over logos? What does that mean?
Well, mythos was the Greek word for word. The meaning of mythos in ancient Greek times was word.
Mm-hmm.
The word mythos meant word. Now, because they were just beginning to be involved in visual space, they became word-centered. Now, the logos was their balancing term for a verbal universe. It was sort of the whole word involving all the sensory life, which was their heritage from pre-alphabetic days, the Homer's encyclopedic buzzing tradition, right? The oral culture preceding the Greek alphabet. So mythos became logos, but logos came before mythos. But the content of one became the form of the other. I'm making it too simple. Let's put it this way.
I thought it was vice versa, though.
It is.
Like mythos comes before.
Logos, you're right. I just
Yeah.
wanted to see if you knew the stuff. No, you're right. Mythos is...
So actually, the myths that they were involved with.
Yeah, multisensory dramatic actions. Multisensory dramatic actions was the real being of the myths. But logos was word-centered, all right?
Mhm.
Now, we've returned to electric acoustic space. Therefore, myth would take over again. But not myth as a drama that you see on the top of a mountain or in the sky.
Mhm.
Because as they moved into visual space, the Greeks had myth as a stage on which they watched the drama of the gods, which was the projections of their own Bob energies and pink battles, right? Now, today, the myth has not a proscenium arch, does not have a stage to watch images. We have ourselves to act out our own myths. Hence the personalizing of history by pinks and tiny and puny individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Personalizing old, obsolete, continuous history. But the impetus for that is the mythic dimension of the electric space, where myth is the perfect expression of the Christian cross, the interval, where Reagan, as a mythic image, represents all of us, the whole world, that we see back on ourselves. And we eat it. This is the gaping maw. The computer government eats its own content. So that's why charisma is defined by looking like or acting like a lot of other people. So the myth is both the content and the form now. That is where the meaning of the word makes the market. The word is the old logos, the old software, the old verbality of the visual space as business content. That's why businessmen, as Frank is interested in, businessmen are interested in ideas, the old logos, the old word-centered image news act that we're perpetually involved with today. But the real form of that logos is the new mythos, mythic, discarnate man, which is super angelic everywhere. You are discarnate. You are mythic. You are eating and gaping on your own content. Therefore, you have an incredible superiority complex. Okay? And that's why you have these pink authors featured a lot in Dimensions magazine and the whole field of New Age literature, hoiking up silly little titles called Gods and Goddesses. You are your own gods, hoiking up these old ancient Greek dramatic entities as visual logos echoes for people to think that they are not mythic. There is no image that's appropriate in past culture for the mythic situation we live in. Myth is a social pattern, and the meaning of the cross is that it is an interval, a gap between the inner and the outer. Now, the old inner and outer of old nature has been subsumed, as I said in my chart. The universal government collapsed. The new gap is between the daily hallucinating and making of our supersensory state with as its content the interval. All right? And that, the only way to do that is myth. And I really appreciate you asking about myth, because myth is what I've been trying to talk about. Many weeks ago I said Bob is a myth. But I am the ultimate point of that myth because I'm aware of it. I've realized the recently achieved forms of consciousness. In other words, I'm conscious of the mythic state we live in, and to define that mythic state takes weeks of on-air programming. You know, I mean, you've listened maybe before, but you're going to have to listen some more to figure out what I meant by what I'm telling you now, right? I will continue to answer your question or your statement for many months coming, because you hit the point, the difference between mythos and logos. And as you notice in my chart, I had there the final phase was under technological government of the satellite. The stage was mythic. And the secret government was the second coming. The second coming is you and sub-geniuses alike.
As far as mythic goes, so is that, would you describe that as maybe imagination?
Ah, good point. That's the next theme. First of all, I want to say that Joseph Campbell is being waked up as the authority on myth, and he's talking the old myth. He has no understanding of what Marshall McLuhan meant by myth, and Marshall was the closest to what we're talking about. I once asked Campbell what he thought of Marshall, and he got mad at me. Just by mentioning the word. They know who they're competing against. But your word imagination, you know what imagination means today? It's not Coleridge's visual or auditory imagination. Nothing to do with Coleridge or Northrop Frye or any postmodernist spin-off of Roland Barthes. Imagination, this is the definition of it. Imagination is that faculty that is not embedded in any sensory operation or any extension, technological, of sensory operations. Imagination is not embedded in anything. And that's what I mean by Bob is the supreme myth, because he's not embedded in the discarnate state. He's articulating it, resonating with it, but he's not embedded in it. That's why I'm a Catholic. I can put on the past.
So if you, when you think of, for instance, the Greek, the Greek myths.
Yeah,
those are when those people thought of them, they weren't actually using their, the environment, their senses to, conjure those myths up in their mind.
Yeah, their mind was a visual stage. See, the effect of the alphabet was to create an internal visual stage in their mind and have the gods act out on them. They were just beginning to interiorize a sense of self-conscious mental space.
But they were trying to imagine something that it didn't involve themselves.
That's right. They were separated from it. That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas today, we are our own myth making function every day. That's why Western movies still resonate, or detective movies, because in a Western situation, when you're on the frontier of many borderlines, you have no identity. Every day, you have to forge a new identity. You have to make a new myth that day. So you're dramatically involved in the mythic energies. You are not reflecting back or mirroring them. You are creating myth every day. That's why everybody is so full of themselves today. All levels of people on today's society, all levels of ignorance and pinkness, all have incredible sense of their self-worth.
So it's just a reflection of themselves, really, that they're
living mythically.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not putting them down for that. It's just the problem is they look pink because they're not aware of why they have such inflated self-worth. They don't know they're mythic.
Is one of your big complaints about people that they don't try to get outside of themselves and view the world differently, other than viewing it through their own self-reflection?
Yes, that's what I meant by imagination. They don't have any imagination. They're too embedded in the environment of today or any other environment. Since we're in a situation of perpetual reruns and retrievals, they're embedded in that process, and they don't know how to get out of it. That's why I'm the greatest artist today, is that I have understanding. And understanding is the only means to survive in an objectless, bodiless world.
Where do you buy that stuff?
Here, Wednesday night. No, it's free.
We gotta